brain, why do you fail me? So, not all bad. Oh my goodness. This is going to be far too long of a video. Yeah. And nothing you can do about it. Hi, welcome back to my channel, We the Foxen. I'm Tabitha, and this is what I've read in the past little while, a little over 2 weeks. This video is a little late, and nothing you can do about it. So, I don't know what the lighting is doing right now. I'm trying to make myself look a little less shadowed and ghosty. The weather, she is a bitch today. So it's very cloudy, rainy, which normally I like, but I'm filming a couple weeks ago I didn't do a what are you reading video because I had only read one book because continuing problem of brain not braining. And that book was a bit of a slog. And it was like 24-hour long audiobook, 700-page novel. It's the Broken Crown by Michelle West. And it's the first book in the Sun Sword series. Canadian author. I was really excited because I'd been looking at this since, as I'm sure I mentioned, since I saw it at the world's biggest bookstore like 10 years ago. And I was a bit disappointed. Because, okay, I'm not saying that this is a bad book. It's not a bad book. It's just not a me book. So we start off, there's a couple main character points of view. I don't even know if you can really call them main characters. This is very much done in a like ensemble sort of way. Like I said, it's a very ensemble cast, set in a fictional world. Very fantastical. There's great evil that's returning, and there's political machinations where like I don't even remember the terms because there's a lot of invented terms for this, that it can be really difficult to follow. So I'm glad that I had the audiobook to help with that. So there's a lot of political stuff. The main ruler ends up getting assassinated. Like the entire palace is killed. Spoilers, I'm sorry. It's a whole lot. For anyone who thinks that A Song of Ice and Fire is complicated and overwrought, this is not the book for you. This is definitely not the book for you. It is quite complicated. There's a lot of terms that there is like a glossary in the beginning, as well as I believe Dramatis Personae as well, that gives you a little bit of a leg up entering into this story, but it's a lot. Very purple prose. So normally that isn't a huge problem for me, but that on top of all the new terms that I had to learn and the political structures, the societal structures, it was a whole lot. That being said, it was quite imaginative, and it's not Eurocentric. It's very much like South Asian centric in its fantasy world, which I thought was a plus. So a little bit of Indian, Thai, Malaysian, that sort of feel. There's like pagodas, there's saris, it has a very non-Eurocentric, very Asian-inspired fantasy world, which is a plus. That is a point in its favor. There's a lot about feminism, and how both women and men suffer under patriarchy. Examples of women finding power in spite of their positions, despite the patriarchy, and then instances of men who, regardless of what their society, what their upbringing should be, what they're being told women should be, like the standards women should be held to, when you are given strong female role models and or guardians or contemporaries from a young age, then men don't necessarily follow the societal rules and regulations, if that makes any sense. So it's a complicated book. There's a lot of navel gazing on the parts of the characters. So if you're really into like the inner workings of pretty much every thought that a character goes through, this might be for you. I think there's 5 books in the series. I don't know if it's done or if it's continuing. For me, I don't know. I don't think I'll be continuing with this series, but this will be someone's cup of tea. It may not have been mine. It may have had a little too much sugar in it for me, but this is someone's cup of tea. So take all of that as you will. Trigger warning that the very beginning does start with an abduction and a rape, but the way that Michelle West writes, it's more tell than show, if that makes sense. You understand that this horrible thing has happened, but it's not exactly graphic. And, yeah. Anyway, moving on. So after I read that 700-page book, I went on to an almost 800-page book, the Fated Sun trilogy. This was released as 3 books originally. This is by C.J. Cherryh. And I saw one review that it was actually posted on Goodreads, was saying that this book made them believe that even a race that you found beautiful, the book made you believe in genocide, which sounded very strange to me. So to explain, this book is about the Maori people. I should say science fiction. So there was a war between humans going out into space, this sentient species called a Regul, who are like a little bit like weird. I have it in my mind that they are the inspiration, loosely, of what the Vogons in Hitchhiker's Guide were based on. They're practical, logical, officious, and that kind of dictates why they do what they do and why they think they're doing is right. So a little bit like that. They're very described as like very sluggish in appearance, and as the individuals in the race age, their appendages become less mobile and useful, so they do end up taking sleds that they like fly around on. So it reminds me a lot of what the Vogons kind of look like. And the Regul, they have hired the Maori, who are very elf-like in their appearance. So they're very tall, they're golden-skinned, bronze, gold hair, goldy yellow eyes. And they are hired as essentially a mercenary corps in this war with the humans. Now, this is prior to the Fated Sun trilogy. And I believe Cherryh had written the Maori Human War books. But that is already finished in this. And what we're coming upon is the humans taking over this planet called Kesrith. Yeah, it's the first planet you're on. Which was a base of the Regul, and it's being transferred over to the humans. But before that happens, spoiler, 1, 2, 3, okay. before the humans take over, the Regul end up nuking the entire population of the Mree. And their reason for this, you find out, is because they think that the Mree will, one, seek revenge against them for, I don't know why, the war is over, and two, because they believe, the Regul believe that the Mree are completely martial, and no matter where they go, violence will occur. So they think that they are doing a service to the rest of the universe, the rest of the galaxy, by committing genocide, by getting rid of these Mree. What ends up happening is that 2 Mree end up surviving and being taken into custody by the humans, which is very upsetting to the Regul. And there is one, I believe his name's Duncan, one human who ends up becoming almost like an ambassador. He assimilates to essentially the Mree culture. And you find out as you go through the 3 books, essentially the 3 parts of this story, that there are 3 areas, like social castes within the Mree culture, only one of which is martial. And that's where I found that the reviewers' opinion about genocide was flawed, because the Mree are thinking about this through the entire book, and they're like, the only one part of our society is martial, the rest of us are peaceful, like, and one doesn't do something without the other, like, we're an integrated society, like, why did we have to die? And Duncan is along for this path of discovery, and like the Regul think that the Mree culture is far too rigid, and they're nothing but tradition, and they're never going to change, and that's one of the other reasons why they tried to destroy them. But you find out through Duncan's interactions with the Mree, and I can't remember the one Mree, Nguyen, is one of the survivors of this Holocaust, and you see through their interactions and their growing friendship and bond that the Mree are capable of change if given the opportunity. Like, if you meet them on like a level field, and you just are open to a discussion, and open, like, in heart and mind, you will have change. Like, change can happen, which the Regul just didn't. They don't deal with emotion. They're logic, so they don't understand that. So they were just like, no, you're gonna just, wherever you go, bad things are gonna happen, so we're just gonna kill you. And while all this is happening, the 2 Mree and Duncan, who is essentially assimilated to become Mree, in practice at least, they're on a search for the Mree homeworld, because Kesrith was not their homeworld. And that's pretty much what the second book is, and the third book is set on the homeworld that they find, and they find the native population of Mree who didn't leave to become mercenaries, who didn't go off into the stars. And this is where a lot of the politics really comes into play, and diplomacy, because the Regul are still trying to get rid of the Mree. They are misrepresenting information and circumstances to get the humans to be on their side, whereas Duncan and the surviving Mree are trying to tell the humans that they are peaceful, and that what the Regul say is going to happen isn't going to happen. And I'm saying this, it's taken way too long to describe all this, but it's actually a really, really good book, and I really think that everyone should read the Fated Sun trilogy by C.J. Cherryh. Yeah. The second book is the second part, middle part is a little bit of a slog, but it's a bit of a slog, but it's worth it. I think the payoff is really good. I do not agree that genocide is a good thing in any respect. I believe that the Mri were open to change under the right circumstances, and that you just have to find what those are, and then we can coexist. So, yeah. Faded Sun trilogy. So that was like 2 weeks worth of reading for those just 2 books. And then I still had 2 books left over from my April TBR with Audible, and I just couldn't do it because they were way too long. So I went and got some shorter books to read. First one being Along the Saltwise Sea by A. Deborah Baker, which is Shannon Maguire's nom de plume for the Up and Under series, which I believe is a companion to Middle Game, that book. Start of that series. So the first one was Over the Woodward Wall. We're following Zib and what's his name, Avery, and they're in this weird like Oz-like world, Alice in Wonderland. Like there's 4 rulers, there's 4 elements, and they're all named after tarot suits. So there's the what was it? The King of Cups, Queen of Wands. There's another king and queen, and I don't remember which is which. And like there's one of their companions is called a drowned girl. So there's this weird species of mer people who don't breathe. They're just drowned people. So children and grown-ups who drown end up going to this underwater civilization, and that's who they are now. So one of their companions is a drowned girl, another one is a crow girl, and she is a human who can turn into a murder of crows. So those are your people. They've just escaped the King of Coins, I think, or King of Cups in the first book, and now they are on the Saltwise Sea on a pirate ship. And I'm not going to spoil any more because the first book, Over the Woodward Wall, was really cool and inventive, but it was pretty much all prologue. This one, I really liked this one. This one was really good. This was really tight middle grade fantasy with a very quick plot, very inventive and informative within the confines of the world that is built here, and it's a really fun pirate story. So yeah, I really like that one. After that, I found this strange series, Tales from the Witchlands. And I got this one because it is a story. It's considered book 2.5. It's a story outside the main plot of the series, and that is Sight Witch by Susan Dennard. And again, a really tight story. I was a little confused at the beginning, but that very quickly picks up because there's a little bit, again, not knowing anything about the Witchland series at all. There's a little bit that you have to kind of pick up as you go along about the lore of the realm and what's going on. But this is a very much a kind of like a self-contained bottle episode kind of story where it's happening alongside the greater arc in the series. And it's a girl goes into the mountain and finds a companion, and then the story progresses from there. Again, not going to spoil anything, but I really enjoyed this one. The lore I found to be absolutely fascinating. There are bits about the present and then 1,000 years prior, and both women are members of this sect of what they call sight witches. And they are witches who are not born but made, is one of their tenets or doctrines. And how they do that is they're summoned into their mountain by their goddess, and they're given their power. And that's either to see through lies, through illusion, or to see the future, or to see the past, like that is sight. There's also a bit of a animal companion element to it with a rook, and his name is the Rook, and don't forget the because he gets upset about it. Yeah, I found this really cool. I am going to start the series. I believe it starts with Truth Witch is the first book. So this is a teen novel series, but I really enjoyed it. Nice and short too. And then one that I've had on my TBR for quite some time because I loved the book as a kid, and then I loved the movie, and I didn't quite know what was going on and with this. It's The Wild Things by Dave Eggers, otherwise known as Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. And I didn't know that Spike Jonze and Dave Eggers had written the screenplay for the movie together, and that this book happened also kind of contemporaneously, like side by side with the movie. I think this may have come out just before or just after the film came out. And reading the prologue, or the it's like a little note from the author in the beginning. Eggers really encapsulates the three iterations of the story very well. Is that Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak, that Max is Sendak as a child. And the Max of the film Where the Wild Things Are is Spike Jonze as a child. And the Max of the book is Eggers as a child. Like that they all evolved and informed each other. Eggers actually wrote the novel after writing the screenplay on the advice of Maurice Sendak, which I found very interesting. And as to that, I absolutely love this book. For those of you who don't know, Max is a little boy. He gets upset with his mother, and he ends up at night, instead of having his dinner and being sent to bed, going on an adventure to this island where the wild things are. These giant, monstrous creatures that at first want to eat him, and then he says, no, I'm the king. But this goes into a lot more, as that he's a little boy. I don't know, what is he, like 9, 11, something like that. So a little boy with a teenage sister who's like, they used to be so close, and now they're not because she's a teenager and doesn't want to be with her little brother anymore. And he is not explicitly said in the novel, but I feel like this kid either has ADHD or autism or combination, because he keeps, when he reacts to something, like he does something pretty nasty to his sister's room in the beginning, and he, after he's done it, he's like, I don't know why I did this. And then his mom, as a single mother, and is like losing her mind, she's like very afraid, and especially with what Max is doing, and she's at the end of her rope, and so she goes, what is wrong with you? And Max is in his head, I don't know. So that's the start. And I thought that was beautiful, and just how sad and how common that sort of thing is that us as adults, we don't know what's going on in children's heads. The children don't know how to explain what's going on in their heads. No one's communicating, no one's listening, and that's the perfect start to a story like this, where Max believes that he goes off into the woods, finds a boat that takes him to this island, and he becomes king, and through that learns that it's not easy being in charge, and has a little bit more sympathy for his mother towards the end. That you can't please everybody all the time, and sometimes things will go wrong, and it's not always someone's fault, and even if there is fault to be found, there should be forgiveness. And I thought that that was beautiful, and the way that the story ends is just, it was so heartwarming, even though it's a non-end ending, but it's an ending, and I loved it. I think everyone with kids should read The Wild Things by Dave Eggers, because then you might have a little bit more sympathy. And I think that teens or even young kids should read this, because then they'll have a little bit more sympathy and everyone can maybe have a conversation. It was really good. I think that should be read, I don't know, like grade 8 or something. Like, that would be awesome. And then on a little bit of a lighter note, even though, people die, I read Rivers of London by, what's his name? Ben Aronovich. I've been wanting to read this one for a while. Originally, I guess it was published as Midnight Riot, and this reminded me a lot of Dresden. So the only one that I've read was Stormfront. But it reminded me a lot of that, although it's more like a cop drama. So it's like Torchwood, but not nearly as dark. It had humor like Dresden Files does. So you have this new cop. He's getting his first real assignment after, walking the beat or whatever. And he comes upon there's a murder. And he sees a ghost and was like, what? That's weird. And things kind of snowball from there. He ends up being recruited into a secret branch of the police force that deals with weird magic stuff. And, magic is real. So he gets a quick crash course in how to be essentially a wizard police officer in London. There's really awesome lore about the actual rivers and how they are personified as people. That's really cool. A thing about vampires, ghosts, a psychic vampire, which is not like the What We Do in the Shadows vampire. It's not that. But yeah, it's really, really fun. It goes right into the history of London, and I loved it. So I'm going to be definitely continuing with the Rivers of London series. That was really fun. And the last one that I finished was really beautiful. And that was The Henna Artist by Alka Joshi. This reminded me a lot of Erotic Stories for Punjabi Widows, which I do not remember who the author was, but we'll just put that here. It was a beautiful, beautiful story about a, 1950s India. This girl was married off young because of family trouble, and they had to marry her off. She 2 years later runs away from her husband. 10 years after that, we find out that she finds out that she had a younger sister that was born after she had left her town, left her husband, left her family behind. And we find out that she is a henna artist to the rich and powerful in the city of Jaipur, and also an herbalist. So she helps with everyday medical issues, as well as women who don't want pregnancy, either in the form of contraception or abortion. And she helps with that. And there's a lot of drama that happens because her sister comes into the picture, and she has all of the worldly knowledge and wisdom of a 13-year-old and gets into trouble. And that trouble ends up getting Lakshmi is the main character. So at this point she's 30. I think she's 30 at this point. So yeah, it gets Lakshmi into a lot of trouble, and she starts losing business, both in her henna work, which before everyone was raving about, like she was the go-to, and in her um, midwifery and herbalist business. And through that, we see a lot of feminist themes of what is expected of women and what women want for themselves, ideas of motherhood and women who want it so bad and can't, women who have their children taken away from them, women who um, don't want to marry at all and want to be self-sufficient, and the different ways that the men around them treat them. And again, brain not braining. But it's a really beautiful story. A lot about feminism in it, and how the way that modern feminism, even though this was set in the 50s, 1950s, how modern feminism um, gets lost with internalized misogyny, and how it, like, what works for me, like the rules for me don't apply to you and all that. um, I know that's mishmash of all these thoughts that I'm trying to put together, but this was a really beautiful book. So I suggest anyone who's interested in India, in the post-colonial India, because this is after um, the Brits leave. It was a beautiful story, and it has a happy ending. Just so you know, just so it doesn't sound so depressing. Now let's get into what I have read this week, and we are going to start with a DNF. And I'm really sad about this DNF because I had high expectations for it, and that would be Lost by Gregory Maguire. I absolutely love Wicked. That is one of my favorite books of all time. I also really love Confessions of an Ugly Stepsister. I thought that was also a really wonderful interpretation of the Cinderella story. I did not like this one. The character, to me personally, is extremely unlikable. Her thought processes are cyclical. She's annoying. Somehow she thinks that she acts like a victim and better than everybody at the same time, and the plot just seemed really confusing, and I stopped at 43%, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I don't want to hear about the ghost of Jack the Ripper anymore. Like every page, the character, she was just going, oh, is it Jack the Ripper? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm not even going to explain why, because I just didn't care. Like, if you want to read the blurb, go to Goodreads or wherever and read the blurb about it. I didn't care. And at almost halfway through the book, and I was just so annoyed I couldn't do it anymore. So that was extremely disappointing. What I'm currently in the middle of reading is Wicked Fox by Kat Cho. I believe this is part of a duology, the second book being Vicious Spirits. This is a young adult, and I'd say on the younger, like teen side of young adult, YA fiction, about a 9 foxtail spirit in Korea. Gumio. I'm not pronouncing that properly, even though I listened to the audiobook. So Korean fox spirit. They feed off of I believe it's not pronounced chi, it's like gi. So the spiritual energy of people. And this character, she's having a hard time moralizing that and coming to terms with that's what she has to do to stay alive. And she ends up meeting a boy by accident, saving his life, and they are becoming friends. and she's starting to question her mother's way of life and how she has treated her daughter to this point. Yeah, that's where I am. So it's cute. It's a cute story. There's bits about magic and the spirit realm, and it's an adorable little story. And then what I want to get to next, which I'll be really excited for because I really love the first book in the duology, that would be Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. I loved Vicious. I loved how it was figured out that you can get a superpower by practically, like, by dying and coming back. Like, being momentarily dead. And that's how you get a superpower. But you can't choose what your superpower is. And the ones that the main characters get are terrible in that they have drastic consequences. And they're terrible in the way that the word awesome used to be a religious term for being in awe of something. Like, they are awesomely terrible. I'm just really excited to read this, and I like that. I have the paperback of the first one, but I love this. It's shiny, 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 and I love the texture. That is what I have read over the last 3 weeks, I guess. So yeah, just trying to get a little bit back into the swing of things. Had a few disappointments, and some new favorites. I like the Fated Sun trilogy. I thought was amazing. And the Wild Things, amazing. So, not all bad. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of any of these, if you like them, if you agree with my interpretations of them. So yeah, what have you been reading? Let me know. And please like the video and subscribe. It really helps out my channel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!